Offer valid on standard browsers. U.S. only.
When I heard about Date My Age, I thought, I gotta check that out. I mean, I'm getting older, sure, but I don't feel like I'm done with, the fun parts of life, like connection and desire, excitement. You don't really find those things at the grocery store or the doctor's office, so I went online. Date My Age made dating an adventure. It gave me a chance to feel like a teenager again. The thrill of seeing someone new and saying, wow. I could send a spicy gift, start a video chat, or just message my compliments to a beautiful woman.
Whether you love, or just like to look, the fun is waiting for you at Date My Age.
Sure, I was skeptical, but Date My Age is safe, secure, and fun.
Get 60% off when you join at datemyage.com today. That's datemyage.com to connect with thousands of singles worldwide. datemyage.com.
Attention, you're listening to the Todd Huff Radio Show, America's home for conservative, not bitter talk radio. Be advised that the content of this program has been documented to prevent and even cure liberalism, and listening may cause you to lean to the right. Here's your conservative, but not bitter host, Todd Huff.
Well, my friends, the Democrat Party, the media, the other radical leftists out there who have been lying to us, deceiving us for some time, they will do whatever they can to avoid this word that I'm about to say to you. That word is accountability. They flee from that word. They run to the hills. They want nothing to do with it. They don't want anything that comes with the concept of accountability. First, that means that you and me, the consumer in the case of the media, the taxpayer and the voter in the eyes of our government, we're the ones that they are accountable to, my friends. They don't like that. They like to be able to do what they want to do, put the spin on it that they want to put on it, and tell us to accept it, or, well, in some cases, or else they'll shut you down in one of the other pillars of propaganda, big tech. They'll shut you down on social media. They'll come after you in some way, shape, manner, or form if you don't toe the line. If you've got enough people that are listening to what you have to say, if you air enough grievances, they will target you. They will call you names. They will shut down your platform. They will criticize you, of course, incessantly. But when they've been caught with their hand in the cookie jar, they don't want to face any of the consequences. So I want to talk about that today. The concept of accountability, how they're avoiding it at all costs or trying to, and how it's important that we insist that they are held accountable. You want to talk about something that is critical in the saving of our democracy, as the left says. It's something like this. It's making sure that we hold the folks accountable for the decisions and the actions, and when it happens, the deceit that they have pushed upon the American people. And when there's plenty of deceit, my friends. We'll get into it here today. By the way, I also want to tell you off the top, today is the best day of my wife's life. 19 years ago today, she became, we were married. She became Mrs. Huff, and that's, of course, it doesn't get any better than that for my wife. But in all sincerity, I appreciate her, and happy anniversary. So, today is the 19th anniversary of Mr. and Mrs. Huff. Before I get started, though, and get down the path of talking about accountability today, we have some accountability that we're all accountable to somebody, right? I'm accountable to you. I'm accountable to our advertisers, to the stations. None of us are just accountable to nobody. That's not the way that life works, and it shouldn't work that way. Accountability is a good thing, but we should be held accountable for taking care of ourselves. In fact, we all are ultimately held accountable. When we don't take care of ourselves, there are consequences to pay for that. And it's important that we take care of ourselves, take care of our families, take care of our business, our job, whatever it might be that's been entrusted to us, our responsibility here this side of heaven. One way you can do that and be responsible in fulfilling your accountability to those who depend upon you is to take care of your heart health, in particular through a product called Solti. I take this product. It's all natural. It's clinically proven to reduce, lower cholesterol. It's done this for other folks. It may be able to do it for you as well. That's why I take it. There's no prescriptions, no doctor's visits. It's not a drug. It's all natural. All you have to do is take 2 Solti soft gels a day, and you can do that at a discounted price as a listener of this program. In fact, you go to Solti.com, SOLTEA, use my name, Todd, during the checkout process. You're going to save 50% on your first 3-month supply, and you will get free shipping. That's a good deal, my friends. Solti.com, promo code Todd is how you do that. 2 Solti soft gels a day. That's all it takes to lower those high cholesterol numbers, or to just proactively take care of your heart, my friends. All right. So a lot to dig into here as the left is in circle your wagon mode. They're circling the wagons around the Biden team. I'm thinking of how I want to say that. The Biden team. Because Joe Biden is not the one to blame for, I mean, maybe a little bit, right? But he's not the one to primarily, I don't think, because of his condition. I don't think he was in the position to be making well thought out and, just easy to follow, easy to understand decision making. He's at a major disadvantage cognitively. I'm not saying he's completely off the hook, but those who are closest to him, those are the ones who are ultimately responsible for protecting the message of his now cancer, and of course, the level of lack of cognition, I guess is how you say it. So yesterday, this was happening, probably when I was doing the program. So Joe Scarborough, Morning Joe, has an oncologist on his program. So Biden, let's back up a half step for those who didn't listen to the program yesterday. I assume that class here is in session, that everybody's here with their notepads open, preparing to take in everything that is said here. But the truth is, you don't always catch all the programs, and it's tough for me to take, but we'll forgive you. You can always listen to other programs on the website or wherever you listen to podcasts, but you don't always hear it. So let's take a half a step back. Biden has been diagnosed with an aggressive prostate cancer. And as we talked about yesterday, even early indications from what I had read seemed to make it clear that this cancer wasn't something that just popped up. This was something that had been there for some time. Now, I went through the whole thing yesterday. I'm not going to repeat myself on this. Suffice it to say that it is sad for the President of the United States, former president, to be diagnosed with cancer. I do not wish suffering on anybody. This could be really, really terrible situation if they do not, if this is not able to be stopped. It's painful. It's sad. And it's not something that we should praise or, cheer. I know there are people out there that are even saying it's justified or it's deserved or whatever. Not the way that I look at it at all. I also fully understand that there have been things that the Biden administration, Biden as the vice president, has done, allegedly. Some things that aren't allegedly. We saw how he ran this country, and it has caused harm on the American people. And I understand that. And we should hold him accountable for that without cheering this stuff on. I just, just to cheer for the demise of one's political opponents is just I can't even understand the thinking. So, but also in saying that, we can be empathetic and pray and hope for a full recovery for the president, while at the same time asking questions and, to go to our key word for the day, holding folks accountable. This is critical in our society. This is critical in life, but this is critical in our society. We have to hold the people accountable for the things that they're responsible for. And so Biden has a team of doctors who are watching out for his health. Remember, about a year ago, I think I saw the headlines of this yesterday, a little bit over a year ago. I think it was February of 2024. Headlines were coming out. You can Google this. Biden is in great health. Everything's great. This guy is just, on top of the world when it comes to health. Now, the rest of us saw this. Now, we didn't see the cancer. That's not what I'm getting at. But we saw a man that wasn't healthy. We saw a man who wasn't cognitive, didn't contain or have control of all of his faculties when making decisions. This was this wasn't just an opinion. Now they're trying, and you'll hear this as we get into the show today. The left is trying to say that there are conspiracy theories from those of us on the right, people like me, who are coming out and saying that we should do exactly what I'm saying here, which is hold these folks accountable. People knew what was going on. I don't think that there's absolutely no way that you could argue otherwise. There's absolutely no way that you could argue otherwise. Even before we knew of this cancer diagnosis, there's no way that someone should be able to get away with saying that Biden was in excellent health. That is preposterous. That's absolutely, we all could see it. It's why they hid the guy from us. It's why they hid him from us. Because again, what did they want? They wanted a Democrat in the White House. They wanted, perhaps more than a Democrat in the White House, they wanted Donald Trump to not be in the White House, and they were going to do whatever it took, again, to go back to the Seinfeld-Newman strategy. If you watch Seinfeld, the strategy was they'll do whatever it takes as long as it takes them, so long as it takes Trump away from 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue. It keeps him away from the White House. Now that he's in the White House, the strategy is generally the same. They'll do whatever it takes as long as it takes them, so long as it takes Trump away from his agenda, his ability to carry out and implement his agenda. If they can get him out of the White House through impeachment, which of course they can't do right now, because of the majority in the House by the Republicans and in the Senate. But that's still their objective. When circumstances change, this is who they are. This is how they're going to address this. And so they were all in. They were all in on Joe Biden February of 2024. They were all in on Biden in May of 24. In fact, they were all in on Biden in July of 2024 up until the moment of the debate. Up until the curtain had been removed and people could see just how terrible his condition was. And when I say they, let me be clear who I mean. I mean the people closest to Biden. I mean his aides and his staff. I mean people in his cabinet. I mean people in Congress who were Democrats meeting with Biden, at least with some regularity, like Nancy Pelosi, like Adam Schiff. These folks knew 100%, hear me say this, 100%, they did not care that your commander-in-chief, the leader of the free world, was completely and utterly incompetent and unhealthy and not capable and fit to do the job. They did not care. They said they will lie to you. They will deceive. They will put up smoke screens. They will engage in political theater and sophistry. And if anyone utters a question about the cognitive ability or the overall abilities of the commander-in-chief, they will freak out and act like that is the craziest accusation anyone has ever leveled against anyone in the existence of humanity. Then they will not only deny that there's not even one iota, one little tidbit, one little teeny weeny little drip of incompetence in Joe Biden, lack of mental acuity in Joe Biden. They will then say it's the opposite. The guy is so smart and so on top of it. This is how they do this is how they play the game. And why do I say this? Listen, on the one hand, what's done is done. But on the other, if we do not learn the lessons, it is bound to repeat itself. If we do not understand who and what we are dealing with in the Democrat Party, in the halls of Congress, in the media, in the medical world as it pertains to the political classes, medical teams, so as to deceive the American people. If we do not understand what we're up against, whatever level of deceit you believe exists in the Biden medical team or in that sphere of people that I just kind of laid out, whatever degree of deceit and deception and gaslighting that you believe exists, put a multiplication sign beside it, and you're going to have to multiply it by some factor. I don't know what the number is, but it's bigger than what we all think it is. I remember when I started this show, I knew DC was the swamp. I knew DC had a lot of bad things. I was there for a bit as a student 20-some years ago, and I could see it. I understood it. I got a feel. You kind of get a feel for it. It's a little bit of a bubble. It's just a different place, and I got to experience that as I lived there and traveled up to the Hill for meetings and heard different people speak and sat in on the Supreme Court hearings and all these things that were happening. All these things that are happening in our nation's capital. I get to see some of those things. And it's obvious. It doesn't even take a great deal of discernment to realize that there is something off in our nation's capital. And whatever we think that they're doing to us, it's worse. I'm telling you, well, there may be examples where it's not as bad. Some people who think that it's, they give these folks too much power and to pull these things off and to succeed with what they're trying to do. But the level of deception is as bad as you can imagine. And what we have to do is we have to learn from this. We have to learn from this. The journalists who covered for Joe Biden's lack of cognition should pay the price. I'm not saying, listen, I know in today's world you have to be so clear because there's, idiots out there, and there are also people who are deliberately trying to misrepresent what you say. I mean, hold them accountable. I mean, stop listening to them. I don't mean to do anything illegal or threatening or anything like that. That's ridiculous. What I'm saying is that they should be held accountable and we should stop listening. I'm about to play a clip from Joe Scarborough. I play these clips on here to show you, because you probably don't watch it, and that's a wise decision. I follow it. I don't watch the show every day, but I will follow the stuff that they say on there because I want you to know, I want myself to know what they are telling the people who view their stupid programs, their deceitful gaslighting programs. Joe Scarborough should face the consequences. He should be held accountable, if you will, by his viewers because he's led them astray, in my estimation, 100%. That's in my estimation. He's been deceiving them, and they should stop listening. That's what I think. That's what I believe. Same thing with Jake Tapper, CNN, who wouldn't even let people question on his program Biden's cognition before the campaign or during the campaign. He wouldn't allow that to happen. Now he's written a book. He's out there trying to enrich himself, my friends, by telling you the things that I think he knew long before the election of 2024. Now he wants to profit, and now he wants to come clean because now he wants it to look like, and this is the point, he wants it to look like he was trying to hold people accountable in the administration, but he just got hoodwinked. To which I say, are you admitting you're completely incompetent for your job, Jake Tapper? To which I say, how does some hayseed hick with a microphone in central Indiana with a radio show and podcast know more about what's going on from 800 miles away from D.C. than someone who could call up the president or his team and have an interview? Well, they weren't doing interviews, but they would put somebody on there. He could have gotten information directly from the team. Probably if he really pushed hard, could have got something with Biden at some point, especially as we got closer to the election. But this is who these clowns are. professional deception at its finest. So Joe Scarborough, let's go to this. Joe Scarborough has an oncologist on his program yesterday. I believe this was yesterday. I think this was yesterday. And now he's up. How did we miss this? How did we not know? How did we not know that this was the case? I thought the president was in great health. I took him at their word. That's what they were reporting. Brings this oncologist on. The oncologist says that the cancer likely developed over a decade. And Joe's back here acting, like, we just had no idea. No idea. These folks are insufferable. Here we go. Let me back this up.
Doesn't it take some time for prostate cancer to develop to a point where it would spread to the bones?
Very few people get diagnosed this advanced. About 7% of all prostate cancer in the country gets diagnosed when you have a lesion that's in the bone, and therefore it's metastatic and incurable. He's had this for many years, maybe even a decade, growing there and spreading. That's right. It's a little surprising. I look back at the records, and there's no evidence that when he got his health status and the medical records were released that he had a prostate-specific antigen. Now, it is true that a lot of people recommend not doing a prostate-specific antigen after 70, but President Biden's been in public life a very long time. He was vice president and had a lot of exams under 70. So it's a little surprising that they didn't do it, and maybe President Biden decided he didn't want the test. Many men do decide they don't want a PSA. But this is it is also aggressive. When we talk about aggressive, part of what we mean is that Gleason score. That score is from 2 up to 10. And he's at a 9. And that means that the cancer doesn't look normal. It looks very abnormal, which is probably why it's in the bone. And as you point out, Joe, it's been around for a very long time in President Biden years. Exactly how many we don't know, obviously. I should mention, it's very important for the public to understand this, and men out there in America. Every year, 288,000 American men get diagnosed with prostate cancer. 34,000, 35,000 American men die of prostate cancer. Many more men will have prostate cancer and die of something else and not the prostate cancer, in part because, as Joe mentioned, it's slow growing, in part also because we have very effective treatments, and I think the president is very likely to respond, and the tumor's likely to shrink with treatment here.
And I hope so, by the way. I hope so. Now, maybe this answer suffices for some of you. As I look at the clock, I don't have much time in this segment. Maybe this is enough because it's not recommended that someone over 70 get the test. Biden is, 81? So if this cancer has been around for a decade, maybe he chose not to have it. But when if this was the only part of the story here, then maybe this would be more understandable. But when you factor it in to everything else, and we'll do that briefly and move on to other parts of this and even move on to other topics here today. But when you factor that into the larger picture, you'll quickly find that this just doesn't compute, my friends. I don't think that this is the full answer. I think that it is more than reasonable to conclude that the people closest to Biden, were hiding this from us. Quick time out, my friends. Back in just a minute.
Offer valid on standard browsers, U.S. only.
When I heard about Date My Age, I thought, I gotta check that out. I mean, I'm getting older, sure, but I don't feel like I'm done with, the fun parts of life, like connection and desire, excitement. You don't really find those things at the grocery store or the doctor's office, so I went online. Date My Age made dating an adventure. It gave me a chance to feel like a teenager again. The thrill of seeing someone new and saying, wow. I could send a spicy gift, start a video chat, or just message my compliments to a beautiful woman.
Whether you love, or just like to look, the fun is waiting for you at Date My Age.
Sure, I was skeptical, but Date My Age is safe, secure, and fun.
Get 60% off when you join at datemyage.com today. That's datemyage.com to connect with thousands of singles worldwide. datemyage.com.
Welcome back, my friends. You know, in order to understand, I guess, this whole entire storyline and narrative, we have to first understand the mindset of the modern left, or even the Democratic Party, the liberals. So in my mind, on my political continuum, you've got on the far left, you've got the godless radical left. These are people who deny truth, deny science, deny common sense. They can't define what a woman is. They think it's fine for children to change their gender. They believe that the world should be viewed through this prism of identity. Whatever your identity is, that's the class of people you're in. And one group certain groups have been mistreated over the course of time, and then it's the job of the government to get even and get reparations. All this kind of stuff is in the crazy realm of the radical left. Then you have the liberals. If you're going left to right, you have the liberals, who are people who are still politically, they have some dangerous ideas, but they haven't completely rejected truth. The radical left has. Friends, I would welcome there to be more liberals. I mean, not moving from conservative to liberal, of course, that's the wrong direction, but to move from that morally bankrupt worldview of the left. Some people misunderstand me whenever I say that the radical left has a morally bankrupt ideology. I don't mean everybody on the left has rejected truth completely and has embraced evil and very, very dangerous beliefs that try to basically undermine the truth of the universe as God has created it. That's not every person who's on the political left. These are the radical, extreme, godless leftists, way out there in la-la land, my friends. Liberals are people who believe, the government should be a little bit bigger. The government should be a little bit, do some more, provide some more services, take some more taxes, maybe punish the rich, maybe get things a little bit even, but they haven't abandoned reality completely. It's still dangerous, but I would welcome a lot of these leftists just to take a step over to liberalism. Then you've got the moderate Democrats, the blue dog Democrats, if you're moving to the right from the far left, the single issue voters, people who have common sense. They understand, they love America as founded. They can see the beauty in the system. Even some liberals can see that, by the way. But a lot of times they vote for Democrats because of a single issue, say like abortion, maybe gun control, maybe because they're a union member, but they're conservative people in many ways. They live their lives conservatively, but for some reason they vote for people who don't run the government conservatively, and sometimes they buy into these arguments that things are just different. When you get to the federal government, it's so different, and everything that you do in your regular day-to-day life, all that stuff has to be thrown out the window because the government's just different. Well, that's the reason we're in the mess, by the way, that we're in, is that people believe that nonsense. Then as you move to the right, you'll have the country club Republicans who, they're comfortable where they are. They're more conservative, I guess, than not, but they're just, they're not principled. They're just, they're wherever the wind takes them sort of thing. They're not really here to push the conservative principles in a fight for these things. And as you continue to move to the right, you get to the conservatives. Now, there's other people, in my political continuum on the far right are the people, extreme right, are the people who want no government at all. Conservatives say we want the least amount of government necessary for there to be law and order and protection of our country. That's what we want. That's what we are striving for. The smallest government possible to do what it absolutely needs to do, and really nothing more. Everything else would be left up to the private sector and individuals and individual choices and that sort of thing. But the left, the radical left, is way out there. And when you want a bigger government, when you want there to be fewer choices, which, by the way, is what bigger government means. Bigger government means less liberty. Less liberty means fewer choices. They want the government to dictate, to insert itself into the decisions of everyday average American people. They want to be able to control people's lives. This is where they are insistent that you refer to someone's pronouns, or you, in the case of Colorado, could find yourself in a world of hurt if you refuse to call someone who's a biological man she. This is how this stuff happens. This is how they don't, they think it's a violation of their rights to be walking down the street and to hear some person sharing the gospel on the street saying that that's an infringement upon their liberty, having a fundamental misunderstanding, or at least wanting to manipulate what it means to be in the public square without, they either fundamentally misunderstand it or they want to manipulate it to make it something that fits their little worldview. And so here we are. These people love power and authority. These are people who love technocrats. These are people who fall in love with the experts. These are people who think that the reason the United States is in the mess it's in is because we haven't had enough of the experts running the show. Meanwhile, people who are conservatives say, hey, I see a lot of headlines out there that say experts were wrong about this, that, or the other, often tremendously wrong. Remember, the experts, well, you've heard people say the experts delivered to us the Titanic and the amateur Noah's Ark, but that's another path we could take on another day. But experts are routinely wrong. The problem isn't that we have experts or people that study these things. It's the degree to which people think that they know. And then they think that they know so much, and they think that their way is the right way, and now they want to control how other people respond to what they think that they've learned. And this is a dangerous way of acting. This is how you get to people getting in your face. I just saw a video the other day of some guy who saw, this was a video back during the COVID insanity. Some guy saw a girl at the park hiking a trail. She didn't have her mask on. He lost his mind. He had a mask on. Came and started spitting at her. Told her he had COVID, and he was spitting and acting a fool. Spitting at her, threatening, hoping, acting like he was trying to give her COVID, and somehow thinking he was the good guy in this scenario. That's how you get to this. That's how you get to this. I mean, may we never forget that era of our lives as well, when people would get on television. By the way, I've got a soundbite. I probably won't get to this, but I'm going to tell you, if you go to the stack of stuff today and you look down, where is this? It says Dave Smith brutally confronts Chris Cuomo over Joe Rogan criticism. It's a video that I found on TikTok, and Chris Cuomo is confronted by this man about everything he was wrong about during COVID, and boy was he. Remember the whole don't take ivermectin because it's horse dewormer, even though it was a medication that was used for human beings for, I mean, it goes back to the 1950s or 60s. I think it's 1955, I believe. And Chris Cuomo was out there parroting that stupid statement. Again, how does a guy like Chris Cuomo not know when he has research team and the at the time he was at CNN, the full support of the CNN team and infrastructure? How does he not know that ivermectin is actual medicine that's used for human beings? And some guy, hayseed hick in the Midwest outside of Indianapolis, knew that it was a medication. I mean, it's just, and how did you know? How did we know these things? It's because they either, well, it's a combination. They don't care, and they want, they envision society a certain way, and it has to be the way that they want it, and the rest of us will fall in line, or else they'll cheer for our deaths as they did. Jimmy Kimmel said, if you have COVID and a heart attack, too bad, dude, you should have taken the vaccine. And just crazy stuff. But we get there because people put way too much power and, well, I guess faith in the government. They treat it as though it's God. That's how the radical left treats it. And when they're running the show, they expect you to follow exactly what they say. There's an incredible amount of arrogance and condescension that's necessary to be a radical leftist. And so that is the requirement. And so that's the requirement. And now when you start thinking about, okay, if that's the mindset of the person in the radical left, on the far left, and you think, well, now they've got a political candidate, they think that the only guy that can beat Trump is Joe Biden, you can understand why they would do backflips and mental gymnastics. I'm not defending it. I'm saying you understand why. They want to keep this hidden. They want to do whatever it takes to get the victory because they can't stand the idea that someone like Trump is sitting in the Oval Office. That would be like we just have a new pope. Catholics just chose a new pope. That would be like Catholics choosing an atheistic pope. That's how they view Trump. Government is their religion. Government is their God. They fall at the altar to worship. They should be running the show. They can't believe that us stupid Trump supporters and Republicans would vote for the guy. I've got to take a break. More on this and more on how they've hidden this from us and how they should be held accountable on the other side of the break. So talk, my friends, back in just a minute. Welcome back, my friends. I don't think the average person can truly grasp the amount of arrogance that is required to be a radical leftist. I also don't think the average person, I mean, you can if you think about it, but I think our starting points are so far apart. We view government as an important part of our lives as conservatives. We view it as something that can be a threat to us. We pay attention to it, but we don't fall at the altar and worship. We don't believe that all of our answers in life come from Washington, D.C., or from the White House, or from the halls of Congress, or the Supreme Court. We certainly see the importance of those decisions, but we don't fall at the foot of the government in awe and reverence. But that's how the radical left looks at this. And so if you see it that way, and then you realize that they don't have an answer for Trump, and you realize they went after him with lawfare. They've tried everything possible to stop the guy for 10 years now, haven't been able to do it. They come to the realization that, well, Biden won in 2020. He might be the only guy that can beat him. And then you realize this guy is in just a terrible situation when it comes to health. You can see why they did what they did. I'm not justifying it. Again, the word of the day is accountability. They're accountable to the American people. We can't just let them say, yeah, he got bad in the last days in office and man, really was a shame. It is a shame that he has cancer, but don't think that you can just focus on that part of this because the bigger picture is you were defending this guy. In fact, he could have very well, if we didn't have the debate debacle back in January, Biden could have been their candidate in November. And let's just say that he would have won. I don't think that he would have, but who knows? If he would have won, what would be happening right now? Do you think that they would be telling us that he had cancer? Maybe. Possibly. Maybe Kamala would be... Think about that for a minute. Maybe Kamala would take over. Someone else would step in. By the way, Kamala wouldn't have been the person that they voted for. She wouldn't have been elected president. She would have been vice president. My understanding, she could have run 2 more times after that. So she could have had 11 years, almost 12 years in office. As I understand it, I think you can only be elected president twice. My understanding of it. But, you know, this could have been a really, really bad situation for the American people if this deceit was carried out. And don't think that they weren't talking about this behind closed doors. I got more to say about this, friends, but I have to tell you, if you are in sales, are you where you want to be? If you're in sales, do you feel like you have to do it alone? And how would you feel if you were able to change, increase, maybe double your sales? These things are all possible, my friends. And Matt Easton and Easton University is here to help you. They have a proven sales training and coaching program that I think is as good as anything I have ever seen. If you're in sales, I encourage you. If you're an entrepreneur, if you're a sales manager, if you're someone responsible for training and maintaining a sales team, I think you should look to Matt Easton and Easton University to teach your sales team, to teach yourself how to become a better, more effective salesperson. This is top-notch quality stuff. Easton University is something that we've used here internally. I think, again, it's as good as anything that I've ever seen. So, ToddHuffShow.com/Easton is where you can go for more information or to sign up and join as a student, Easton University. And if you do that through our website, you're going to get a special bonus as a listener here. You're going to get a one-on-one call with Matt Easton to welcome you to the program, to help identify where you are with sales and kind of help you get your program kicked off so that you get the most out of the training as quickly as possible. Do not let the opportunity pass you by, my friends. Invest in yourself. You can learn the skills to make you a top-notch salesperson. ToddHuffShow.com/Easton. All right, going back here to this discussion. It's important to understand who the left is, why they believe what they believe. I call them the godless radical left for a reason, my friends, because government is their God. I don't say that lightly. We all worship something, as I've shared on here before. Worship is what we consider to be ultimately worthy. Ultimately worthy. We can worship the self. We can worship our Creator. We can worship money. I mean, we can worship anything. The left worships power. The godless radical left worships power. It is, at its core, it is a profoundly proud and self-righteous ideology. Its God is power. Its God is government. And so when you have somebody running the government that wants to make the government smaller, right? They'll say that Trump is a fascist. Actually, the opposite is happening. Trump is someone who is unleashing more liberty for the American, right? More freedom of speech, more of your money in your pocket, less government bureaucracy, red tape, intrusion upon your life. That's what Trump is doing. This is the opposite. This is why they hate the guy so much. They've spent all this time building this. And now Trump is dismantling it. Trump is a major threat to the people in the Democrat Party. And when you realize that they thought that their best chance was Joseph Robinette bribery, you can see why they hid and covered for this guy. I'm not excusing it, but you can intellectually understand, especially once you understand how important this is to them, why they did what they did. But they did what they did, and they need to be held accountable. I got more on this on the other side of the top of the break, top of the hour. Got to go, though. SDG.